So, empathic abilities. I wanted to talk about this today because it seems like I am connecting with a lot of people who are incredibly empathic and have no idea that they are. And I had a session with a woman the other day who was a perfect example of this. And I asked her if I could share a little bit about what happened in our session because I think so many people would benefit from it. And I'm not going to say her name, but she did give me permission to talk about this. And basically, usually when I do a session with somebody, I meditate beforehand and sort of feel around in their energy and just write whatever comes to me. And this is part of me being, I'm very empathic as well, and so I just write whatever impressions that come to me and then talk to the person about them, and they're usually the ones that give them meaning. But what kept coming up for me with this woman whom I had never met before or talked to before, we just had a session scheduled, was that her lower three chakras were um, closed and kind of clogged up, like a lot of gunk was in there. And there was many other things, but that was one of the primary things that kept coming up for me. And so when I talked with her, I told her that, she was like, "Oh my gosh, I can't believe you bring that up because that is where I have all my issues." She had some medical issues that involved her lower stomach, her lower chakra areas, but primarily that she feels everything, all emotions in her stomach, and she feels it very deeply. So if anything's going on, if she goes grocery shopping, for example, and it's crowded, she feels very overwhelmed by everyone's energy in there. She'll feel it all in her stomach. She'll go home and she'll feel nauseous. She'll feel like she wants to vomit. And she just has carrying all this energy and these emotions in her stomach. And what I was picking up on through this session is that not only is she empathic, she's incredibly clairsentient, which is a form of being psychic, which is where you feel everything. Instead of seeing visions, you feel it in your body. And basically, through our session, we were able to sort of move through a lot of that energy, and I talked to her about what being empathic is. And the funny thing is she sensed that she was sensitive to other people, but she had no idea how incredibly sensitive she is. Like it's out of most people that I've ever connected with, she's one of those. She's definitely psychic in that way. She's clairsentient, and but she had no idea. So I talked to her about one of the things that has helped me with dealing with that gift with me. And again, I'm like her in the sense that when I was younger, I just thought I was insane because I would feel emotions all the time that I had no idea how or why, where they were coming from or what they meant. And I just assumed it was me, and I just assumed I was crazy, and I assumed I was emotional all the time. And there were a lot of things that went on in my life that were hard, and so I just figured, oh, I'm just dealing with this. And in reality, much of it came from outside of me. What happens when you're empathic is you are kind of a transmuter of energy. If you learn to use it to your advantage, it can be very beneficial to you and to other people, because what you're doing is you move the energy through you, and if you move it back out of you, you can kind of cleanse it, basically. So, I mean, there's a lot of different things, and everyone uses their empathic gifts in a different way. So I'm just talking about specifically how it is for me. But when I realized for me that I was finally I was finally starting to understand how to realize when it was me and when it was not me. Was when I was on a bus one day. I got off the bus. I was downtown in Portland, and I got off the bus, and I just had this overwhelming sense of grief come over me, like to the point where tears were just welling up within me, and I just started to cry, and I felt suicidal. And all day that day, I'd been really happy, and there was nothing going on. I mean, it literally came out of nowhere. And normally in the past, I would have taken that all on. I would have thought, oh my gosh, I'm insane, I'm crazy. I would have kind of disappeared into my room for a while, because when I have overwhelming emotions, I don't want to be around other people because I'm too sensitive. And so, but I realized I was able to stop it immediately and was like, no, this is not mine. That woman that was sitting next to me on the bus it was hers. I remembered, because it happens unconsciously, but I remembered, I thought about it, and suddenly consciously I realized I had sort of tapped into her energy and looped myself in it. And I had taken it off, or I'd gotten off the bus, and it just sort of was with me. I felt it. I was away from it, but it was around me. I was away from her, but the energy was still around me. And I was able to sort of breathe through it, and I just imagined it going through, and then I let it go. And I felt a million times better, and it just sort of left me. and I realized, okay, there is a way to transmute this and let it go. And one of the things that I do that's really helpful for me is I imagine, and I talked to my client about this, shielding. And I'm going to put some links below about some techniques that can be very beneficial, but shielding is one that helps me a lot. And what I do is I just envision a white bubble around me, and I imagine like little purple hearts all over it, kind of really bubbly, like purple bubbles all around me. So it's not like get away from me that sort of energy. It's very lovely and um, fun. And I imagine when I'm in crowded places or anything, I imagine this around me, and I imagine the energy coming to it and sort of bouncing off it. It's circulating through the little heart bubbles, so it clears it and then moves it back out. But it doesn't go in me. It doesn't come and get inside of me, if that makes sense. So that's one of the huge things that has really helped me. But what happened with this client during our conversation, we moved a lot of energy around, and by the end of the conversation, I felt that she had, from the beginning of the conversation, she seemed sort of sad and down, and there was a heaviness there. By the end of the conversation, a lot of that had cleared. But what happened with me was really interesting is that after I got off the phone with her, and it was a fantastic session and very enlivening, and she's just a kindred soul, and I related a lot to her. But I suddenly just felt incredibly exhausted. Like, I mean, this wave of exhaustion came over me that I couldn't do anything. I just had to sleep. I mean, I fell into this deep sleep, and I slept for like 3 hours, and this was right in the middle of the day. And when I woke up, I was just I realized like that there was some major, we did a lot of work there, like some major passing, and I did my best to sort of let it go. And I felt fine after I took a nap, but I checked my email, and there was an email from her, and she said that after we got off the phone, about a half hour later, she was laying down, and she literally felt physically within her, in her lower stomach where she was having issues, something sort of pop and release, like blood release, like it basically gunk being literally physically passed through her. And she was just like, is that normal? Is this sort of like, she's like, I feel like it was directly related to the psychic sort of um, blockage that was going on, because I kept talking about a blockage there, and she said, I feel like it passed. And I knew exactly that's why I felt exhausted, because, and I told her this, a lot of times when sessions for people who are incredibly empathic, I have found, end up being more like surgery, because they're so sensitive to that. And so for her, it was basically like having surgery on a psychic sense, because she released so much, and she moved around so much energy in that conversation that we had. And it was only an hour and a half conversation. So anyway, and she shared how pivotal that was for her, that conversation, and that being able to release that. So I just wanted to share that with you, because if you are psychic at all, or empathic at all, is what I mean, um, it's so important to understand what is going on, and being able to decipher when emotions come up that are yours and when they're other people's. And I mean, empathic people, a lot of them have trouble with codependent relationships, and there's a lot of things that can go along with it if it's not honed in and understood and used to your advantage. In other words, you being in control of it instead of it being in control of you. So I'm going to post some links before that I think are good resources to learn to deal with this and understand it. And if you have any questions, just let me know. Okay, I love you.